Welcome to Successful Parenting, where we, Jackie Rue and Robin Choquette, share practical skills for families to build resilience and healthy connections. As practicing professionals and parents ourselves, we hope this podcast is a resource for parents to grow, reflect, and learn more about themselves and their children. Our approach is simple, tangible, and most importantly, we lead with compassion for the integrity of the families we serve. This podcast should not be taken as medical advice and is intended for informational purposes only. We love our work and we can't wait to watch families gain confidence and open themselves up to new ways of successful parenting.
Good morning, Robin.
Good morning.
How's it going in Kansas? How's the weather out there?
It is nice and hot, just like summer should be, right?
Yes, we are all in with our humidity here in Chicago today. It is very steamy out there, but what more would you expect for the first week of August?
Right. It's always steamy in Kansas, it seems like. I mean, my hair grows every moment. It gets bigger and bigger, right? I'm from the South, so I kind of like it that way. But yeah, it is nice and hot. I love this weather. I love this time of year. I've said it before. My favorite time of year is the summertime.
Well, and I tend to lean in a little bit. I like summer, but I also love fall. You know me, I get all into the pumpkin spice and the leaves and I'm more of a 50, 60 degree person. So I love it all though. And it's funny. I don't know about you, but I'm spending a lot of time this week talking to parents about the start of school and how did it get here so fast. I think many of us needed a little bit of a break or reprieve this summer to catch our breath after last year. And
right.
I think for many of the families I've heard from, the last couple of years has been anything other than routine and normal. It's been a lot of curveballs and a lot of adjusting. So I think for many families I've heard this week that they are a little nervous about what the start of the school year might look like for their children.
Right. And all of that uncertainty. And, they started back last year, most schools. We've gotten rise in some numbers of COVID now, and people are getting anxious about that. That's becoming a conversation. And then, what's it going to look like? Are things starting to settle back? Or are we in a new place than where we were before? I think we're in a new place. I don't think it's going to look exactly the way it did prior, but I think we're getting better at figuring out our new place.
I think for sure. And I think so many of us love summer because there is a little bit of taking, opportunities to take a breath and not to be so structured and busy as we might find ourselves in the school year. But I think for so many, and I'll say for myself too, I am truly a person that does better with structure and routine. I feel better about myself and I tend to do better when I'm a little bit more structured. And I think many of the children I talk to that have anxiety, they love summer and they don't necessarily look forward to going back to school. But I think the parents would agree once they are in their routine, they start to do better. They start to feel better. And so what we're going to talk a little bit about today is for so many children and teens dealing with things like anxiety, struggling with confidence, they tend to do better with some routine. And it's very common that they have what's called, and I call this is kind of like you would call a psychobabble term. I call it anticipatory anxiety. We worry, anxious people don't usually worry that everything's going to go well. They don't worry that, I'm so nervous I'm going to go to school and everyone's going to want to be my friend and the teachers are going to be fighting over me. And, when we get nervous, we think worst case, what if no one likes me? What if
Right.
I get a really mean teacher? What if I can't handle? And it really does come down to confidence.
For sure. When you're talking about that, I think one of the big things, Jackie, when we talk about confidence and we talk about managing all of that that's going on and we're feeling uncomfortable, and as you said, for you, a structure, and I agree, I work my best when I'm in a structured environment. My grandkids start school next week, and so their parents are busy, they're coaches, and I'm kind of on duty. And one of the things we started talking about this week was, getting back in the routine of just getting up early. They have to be up by 6 o'clock. Bus is here by 6:45, and talking about what would work for them. And we came up with a plan of what time they would wake up starting this morning, and they were going to work all the way till the first day of school. And they created it. I thought it looked beautiful. They sent it off to their parents, and they're actually excited now that, they're accomplishing, now we're up this time, and then what it's going to look like tomorrow. So that excitement, and they're doing something, and they created something, and they're accomplishing it.
Well, and I think just starting that routine early, Robin, I think that's brilliant, because I think for me, I reflect on anytime I take a week off of work, or, I'm on a vacation, it's always so challenging for me to get back into my routine. And I really struggle, that first day back. And
Mm-hmm.
really, once, Tuesday or Wednesday, let's say, if I'm going back on a Monday hits, it starts to get easier. And I think it's very similar for a lot of children. And Robin, we work a lot with children that have anxiety and school anxiety. And so, I want to share a couple tips. I've been asked a lot this week to share some tips about ways to support those children and teens struggling with school anxiety, struggling with those feelings of, I don't like school, I don't want to be there. And it's not always, anxiety, right? Sometimes it's lack of confidence, or sometimes it's just that uncertainty. And when we get in that place, those thoughts can really trigger. And pretty soon we want to avoid. And the more we avoid, the worse it gets. And so, I'm going to start out with, I just want to share 4 tips today. And the first tip I want to share is really helping the child by just writing out some clear expectations for the school year. I think we sometimes become overwhelmed or even confused. I know I do. And when my children are struggling, I tend to have this tendency to lower expectations. And it really, I have found, Robin, for me, it's not helpful. So what I've really learned to do, and it's worked beautifully with the parents I work with, is setting the expectations and not making it a power struggle, not saying you have to do this, but saying, these are our expectations, and being consistent that if you meet these expectations, much like if I go to work, I get paid, you get privileges, right? You get your electronic time, you get friend time, you get, social time, you get, special family time, whatever the privileges may be, but
Mm-hmm.
really allowing it to be on the child.
Right. And keeping it simple. I think we sometimes have a tendency, Jackie, to do those expectations, and we can suddenly blow it up. And you're talking about being consistent. I think keeping it simple is one of our biggest advantages to being successful and being consistent. Because what happens, I think we start to feel our own anxiety. We struggle with it because we're trying to manage it all, and our anxiety, and then we second guess and we question ourselves. And so we're not even looking confident in what we're asking the child. And so how to put your game face on, I think if we keep it more simple, our consistency's there, and then we start to feel more confident.
Right. And that is actually, that's diving right into tip number 2. And I laugh because this is the tip that I've worked so hard on and I struggle with. And I often call it practice your game face, right?
Mm-hmm.
As parents, I think we struggle with confidence. We want our kids to be happy. And for me, I've had to fake that confident game face, right? So tip number 2 is really be aware of your own anxiety as a parent, and what are things that cause you to socially react. It's important that as parents, when we have expectations, we stay calm. We don't change them, on a day-to-day basis, but we're clear and we stay calm. And for me, that's been helpful. Even when my kids are struggling and I become anxious, just really reflecting, being, as you always say, self-aware, and practicing that game face during times when it does get really difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because when the difficulty comes up, we start reacting. And for some parents, and I know I've done this, is that we start talking a lot. and then we start going into that reassurance, and we get involved more in the expectations instead of letting the child be able to manage the expectation.
Well, and I love that you point that out, because it's so funny, but we all have this tendency to want to reassure when someone's anxious, but evidence-based practice and research shows that reassurance makes anxiety worse. And so one thing, we talk a lot about, and this is going to lead into tip number 3 is really just avoiding that attempt to make your children feel better, but allow them to be okay not being okay. Allow them opportunities to work through that. And the expectations and being consistent will help that. So tip number 3 is really allowing your children to be uncomfortable, and the practice of, as parents, us practicing being comfortable, being uncomfortable as parents at times. And that's going to lead into our last tip for today. And this is one, Robin, I remember we were doing a parent talk together, and we had about 200 parents in the audience. And I asked the audience, and you had started laughing, but I said, has any parent in the audience ever had a power struggle with their child and they won? And they laughed, and they were like, it doesn't work, but we do it every day. Right. Tip number 4 is avoid power struggles. That's the one thing I would say is, if you find yourself fighting and arguing back and forth, or negotiating, the expectations in the middle of an argument, or, kind of empty threats, it's going to lead to more frustration, and it's going to increase the anxiety in both parties, most likely. And so right. Tip number 4 today, and this is, keep in mind, Robin and I laugh at this too. We've made every mistake as parents. We've learned through our mistakes. And so what we're sharing, these aren't easy things to do. They sound easy, but they're not. And I think as parents, we have to remember to be kind to ourselves, and we're doing the best we can. And so these are really just tips we're sharing. It's not, no parent is perfect. We all struggle, but these are just things to think about that might really help. And you might not see the improvements right away. You might not see them for a while, but we have seen if you really stay consistent with this, it does make a difference.
Yes, absolutely. Great tips. I love them.
Yes. And if you do, as we always suggest, if these are areas of concern, or they're very difficult for you, now more than ever, reach out for some support. Feel free to reach out to us, or reach out to a therapist in your community or someone at the school. I think we really need to lean on each other now more than ever.
True. It takes a community, right, to do what we're trying to do and to raise kids.
Absolutely. I was just thinking that saying, it takes a village.
Yes. Okay. Well, we are finished. Good to talk to you, Jackie. Have a great day.
Good. I will talk to you soon, Robin. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us, and make sure to subscribe and like us to catch our next episode, where we will take you on a journey to find new ways of successful parenting.